How are you doing, green industry business leaders? This is episode number 7 of the Green Industry Profits Podcast, where we talk about how green industry companies can grow in a profitable way. In today's episode, we had a conversation with Laura Reale of AquaReale and BlueGreen Marketing. We dive into the employee structure of her pond install company, tips on marketing, building systems, software she uses within the company, and much more. And before we dive into the episode, just a quick note that this podcast is brought to you by Cycle CPA, a remote accounting firm that works specifically with green industry businesses. For more information, go to cyclecpa.com. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, so super excited for this episode here. A lot of great topics ahead. Going to look into both running a company, but also the marketing aspects of it as well. So here today we have Laura Reale with AquaReale and BlueGreen Marketing. So thank you for
Yes.
joining us, Laura.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, um, and I'm looking forward to this because we haven't had someone on the podcast yet that does a lot of the pond install work. So it's looking forward to diving into there. But I guess, how did you decide to get into the green industry? Or
So, like everyone else, interesting story. My husband's background is in landscape design. He has a degree in landscape design from Temple University. And when we met and got married almost 25 years ago, I convinced him to go out on his own, that, he could do it, we could do it. So we started the company actually in 2000, and it was called Reale Landscape Design. And I'll tell you a really funny side story about that. So at the time, I wasn't really involved in the business that much. I had my own stuff going on. My background is public relations and marketing. So, but we decided to make me a 51% owner so that we would be women owned if we wanted to use that angle for contracts and stuff. But what was funny is at the very beginning of our business, when we ran it out of our bedroom in some apartment we had or some little house we rented, we used to fight because he wouldn't give me receipts and he wouldn't tell me what was happening, and he wouldn't and I was getting so annoyed. So my mother was always involved. And she's like, I think you guys need a marriage counselor. I'm like, already? She's like, you need to talk to someone. So we went to a marriage counselor, and the marriage counselor goes, just stop right there. She goes, you don't need me. You need a bookkeeper. And that was 25 years ago. Since then, we have not needed marriage counseling, but we've always needed a bookkeeper. And it was funny. We just needed, we've learned as a husband and wife business, one of the most important things is to get help. And as we've grown, I'll talk a little bit about, but now we have an office manager and a director of operations. So they all nag him, although he says I still do. But, just having someone in the middle was really helpful even then, because she helped us get on QuickBooks. At the time it was just basic, but and she was with us until we met you guys. She was with us a long time. We were her last client. I think she was in her 70s.
Wow.
And she didn't really know how to use QuickBooks online. And that's when we transferred to you guys about 3 years ago, I think it was. So anyway, so for the first 10, 11 years, Matt ran the business well, but he never made much money. I kind of supported us with my marketing, and I had a lot of clients. I did a lot of product sampling. So we had a baby at the time. We kind of shared responsibility, and but I wasn't super involved with his business. And I would watch leads come through and him just ignoring them and ignoring this. And I was like, oh my God. So I think maybe our best year back then was 250,000. So then in 2010, everything changed. And I had another kid. I think it was more like 2010, 2011. I had another kid, and my mom, who had lived with us for the first 5 years of our daughter's life, and she came for 5 weeks when our daughter was born and stayed 5 years. But it worked out great. We got along great with her. My husband got along great with her. So when I was 39 weeks pregnant with my second child, and my kids are 8 years apart, my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And then when Max was less than a year old, he was diagnosed with autism. And life just threw me for a loop because all of a sudden went from three of us taking care of one kid to two of us taking care of three people. So big change. And I lost my biggest client, which was huge. I had 15 part-time people working under me. It was huge. It was horrible. And it was a large dairy company that presents itself as farmers and family first. Okay, till you have problems and then it's goodbye. So I didn't know what to do. My son had like up to 10 hours of therapy a week. My mom, we were trying to deal with her, and then we got her moved into assisted living, but then they took away her car. So like I had to be there for her. So I went to a career counselor and I looked around. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And finally we came up with the idea of me kind of taking over the business. But the deal was I would run it, or like my decisions he'd have to listen to me.
Sure.
And that's when we were still doing general landscaping, but we couldn't compete number wise with Hispanic labor, with cheap labor, with unexperienced people. So my husband had been to a build a pond day like years before. We're kind of like, maybe we should look into that. Like maybe water features is where we can, make money. So we got connected with our local aquascape distributor and decided to go into the pond business. And we changed the name of our company to AquaReale, play on our names. So we worked with the brand specialist to come up with that. And since then it has grown and grown. And last year we reached 1.6 million. So yeah, so big success. And then what was interesting, what happened is and now, I mean, we have systems out the wazoo, because we had this great coach for years, but he taught us how to make money. His name's Tom Reber. Now he's like super famous and big, but we had him when he was small and just him. And he taught us how to make money, but not how to keep a company and how to like keep employees and how to create systems, and everything would just come out of me and Matt's head. And like I said, we would fight and argue because he still wouldn't give me information. Even to this day, we joke. I'm like, if you gave me receipts like everyone else, I wouldn't have to ask you questions at night. And he's like, so, because we get the invoices from Heritage come and they're all POs, and it's like Smith, Monroe, this, that, Matt. That's my husband. So I'm like, dude, like, this is why and I showed it to him. He goes, oh. So like once he sees it, that helps too, that, he's still the employee that drives me the crazy. But through the years, we kind of split up the company and divided responsibility into maintenance and construction. And I took over maintenance. And within 1 year of taking it over, we increased by 42%. We also hired a maintenance manager. We did a ton of different stuff, like really cool, exciting stuff. And, but when I started making money out of AquaReale, like in the mid 2010s, like maybe 2016 or so, people started asking me how I did it and what was doing it. And we were doing a lot of email marketing. We were using less annoying CRM, which we still use, which is the world's easiest CRM, which I recommend. They don't pay me. They're $10 a month. And so we use them, and then we sync everything to MailChimp. And people started asking me, well, can you help me? Can you help me do this? So that's how, what at the time was Pondtent, which was content for pond builders. And that's how that was born. And then from there, I got involved with landscape business owners and Scott and Katie Mulchin, and started wanting to get involved with landscapers too. So then I changed the company name, and then I just changed it again. And now it's BlueGreen Marketing, which represents ponds and landscaping.
Very nice. No, that's quite the journey, Laura.
Yeah.
And I definitely want to unpack a couple things there. But
Yeah.
but first, in regard to 25 years working with your husband, right?
Oof.
Uh,
Yeah.
what are other things you would recommend? Because even I work alongside Carlo, right, with Encyclo CPA, and I know we have a couple things that kind of rules of thumb that we try to follow. But a marriage could have its challenges, personally speaking, but then you're getting the business involved. Do you have
It's
any other
tough. It
advice?
is not for everyone. And luckily, our personalities is I'm very aggressive and he's very passive. Like once I even said to him, like, I'm really bossy. He's like, no, it's okay. I like it. So like and if he doesn't, he just doesn't listen to me. So step number one, I always tell him, you can't argue with crazy. So he'll agree and then do what he wants. And then, ugh. But a couple things. I was going to say learn to separate, but we don't. Really bad at that. We need every once in a while we're like, okay, we're gonna go to dinner. We're not gonna talk business at all. And then we're like, nope, nope, go back, go back, go back. Like it just starts getting into your system. But what really, really helped us was creating job roles and descriptions and splitting things up. If I stuck my nose in everything, it would drive him insane. And I don't know anything about construction. I don't know anything about ponds. I know it sounds pretty funny from the president of a $1.6 million pond company, but I don't need to. So I guess the trick for us is staying in our own lanes. So, and we do this at home too. We call it managerial and labor. So I'm the manager and he's the labor. So at home, he does the grocery shopping, he does the cooking, I do the bills, I do all the financial stuff for personal, I do all the medical forms for our kids, I do everything on the computer, and he does the cooking, he does the grocery shopping, takes out the trash, and he does a lot. I mean, trust me, we run, but that's personal. And then we run the business together. But it just worked well for us. And he doesn't question, which sometimes I'm like, don't you want to know? Like, he's like, oh, I trust you. I'm like, what if I'm making us bankrupt? And he's like, nah, I trust you. So I'd say what's really important is you have to trust your partner in business
Yeah.
and don't micromanage them.
Gotcha. No, that's some great advice. And then you had also mentioned kind of introducing an office manager and even someone to lead the operations side as well. Uh, how was that
So,
transition?
so what happened was years ago, I used to joke that the nicer the weather, the more time I'd spend inside. Because I started at first trying to take over everything. And these phone calls just wouldn't stop coming. And that's how we got involved. My friend Barbie put me in touch with Less Annoying CRM. And she's like, this is how you can track everything. So back then we tracked everything on it and used it for everything. And as we grew, we realized, and we also have an answering service. We got like the whole system here. So we realized though, first we needed an office manager. We needed, or at the time I called them my assistant, but it went so much more than that. And that was just to start with the phone. Just, we used to call it the bat phone because no one wanted it. Sandy has it now. We still don't, nobody wants the bat phone. But it doesn't ring all day because the answering service gets it. So that makes it way easier.
Sure.
But Sandy's in possession of that damn, and then I upgraded it and it got her upset because she liked the iPhone 6. She was used to it. Um, she's funny. So we went through two office managers, the one we loved, and she ended up getting a full-time job. And we used to say, we're like, we wish we could find someone like Sandy, who's this woman we've just known forever through my synagogue. And I'd known her since our kids are 22 and 21 now, and our kids were like 2 or 3. So we'd always just kept in touch, and I knew she was very responsible. I knew she was very, and I didn't want someone virtual because we have office meetings. I don't know if we did at the time, but we wanted someone that knew the area, like knew where we lived,
Sure.
knew where the towns were, and it just, and now she could pick things up, drop things off. I know some people like virtual, but I like seeing her once a week. So she comes to our office meetings on Wednesday mornings. So then as we grew and grew and the maintenance side grew, it was too much for Sandy. She doesn't want to work full time. She never really did. So she actually, then she had a medical emergency about 2 years ago. And gosh, it's only 2 years ago. And we quickly learned that our system sucked. Like it was the end of, we do a like a sale, like a percentage off to sign up early for the year for maintenance contracts. But at the time we only did it by check, which is really stupid. So when she went in the hospital, her daughter came by with a shoebox full of checks. And I literally just put it in my closet and cried. I'm like, I don't even know what to do with this. So my best friend came over. She had no idea she was doing, but she just sat next to me. So sweet. As I entered 7 hours worth of transactions. And I'm like, I'm not doing this again. So the things that are, and then we started with this new coach because I was sitting there crying to my best friend, Barbie, who's also a pond builder. And she's my accountability partner. We've talked every Tuesday for 7 years, which is
Wow.
insane. And I was crying to her. I'm like, and she's like, you need a coach. I'm like, Matt, we'll get a coach again. And she's like, give me a little time. Matt's like, I guess we're getting a coach. I'm like, go Barbie. So we started working with this woman, Heather, who helped us figure out our systems. And that's when we made it over $1 million. So the first time about 2 years ago. And she just helped us see that Sandy, and Sandy is, I want to say she's older, but she's not young. So she's not the best with the technology stuff. But where she does have huge skills that most people don't is she's really good with people and on the phone. Because she, like me, is used to picking up the phone. Where our director of operations texts everyone. It drives us nuts. We're like, Tyler, you have to call them. He's like, I'm scared. Oh my God. So he tries to push it back on Sandy.
Yeah.
So Tyler came on board 2 years ago, also in August. We weren't even looking for someone. And it's one of those things where he reached out to 10 pond companies in one day. And
Wow.
because of our systems and how good they are, we're the only one that got back to him that day. And because the answering service takes the call right away, and then they send it immediately, they send a sheet to me and Sandy with the info on it. Sandy saw it. She's like, ooh, this guy looks great. Let me call him right away. She talked to him for over an hour. And then she's like, you guys have to interview him. You have to meet him soon. So we met him that weekend and we hired him. So within 3 days. And that's, people complain there's no good people, but I don't believe that. I believe your systems aren't good enough to find them. I hate to
Wow.
say, but 3 of our 5 current staff, 4 found us. And that's just freaking amazing in this world. And one my husband went to high school with. So he was our maintenance manager at the time, Eric, and he hated it. And it was funny because I was complaining to our business coach. I'm like, Eric doesn't do anything he's supposed to do on the list. He has to do this. And she's like, have you ever asked him if he wants to do it? I'm like, oh, no. So I asked him and he's like, no, I don't want to do this. Okay. He just wants to do the ponds. So Tyler was young, excited, very interested in business. And within 4 months, he became maintenance manager because he had an interest in everything Eric didn't, in tracking numbers, in scheduling, in looking at things, at doing profit and loss. Eric and my husband just want to be in nature. And then
Yeah.
we learned Tyler was best not in the field. Tyler's clumsy. And if he hears this, he knows I love him. He gets poison ivy. He just, and the stuff he was providing. So first it was a hybrid position. And then we talked about hiring someone social media. And he's like, why not just have me do that, as well instead? So we decided this year we made him full-time director of operations. And it's worked out great because what he does is things that are so cool. He looks at every single job, how much time we bid for it, how much time it actually took, who did it, and why we went over, and if we have to change our numbers. So we're very numbers based. So that's kind of how the 2 positions evolved. And I worked very carefully with Sandy to make sure she knew she wasn't being replaced. And so Tyler and Sandy have huge appreciation for each other because neither could do the other's job, but I need to understand what both of them do. So
Absolutely.
every Wednesday we have a staff meeting with the whole company. And then we have a Zoom call with me, Sandy, and Tyler. And then we have a second Zoom call with me and Tyler. And then I talk to Sandy every Monday. So one thing I would say, if you have a virtual assistant or anyone, you have a maintenance manager, anyone, you have to have weekly communication with them. And my husband does 8 a.m. calls with Sandy and Tyler on Tuesday mornings. So schedule, 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 because if you don't schedule, things don't happen.
Absolutely.
So that's how we ended up with an office manager. And like I said, at first, Sandy's like, we don't need an answering service. What would we need that for? And now she's like, I don't know what I would do without it. Because people call all day.
Yeah.
All day. And she has to prioritize. And she calls them all back and gets back to everyone. But, we don't call the salespeople back. And then what's really cool is the answering service can actually schedule appointments to talk to us. So we have a system where and it's so funny, like people think it's something different. They go to our website. They go right to the website that we use and they schedule. If it's a morning call, they get Sandy for maintenance. And if it's night, they get Matt for construction.
Very nice. No, yeah, that's great. And I thought it was very interesting because I think I hear about it a lot within the marketing world when it comes to, they say you should get back to a lead within the sooner the better, right? But you don't hear a lot about that in regard to recruiting.
I don't get it.
And
And
yeah,
I mean, it is just like I said, with hiring people, we weren't looking for the three guys that found us. And a fourth had found us because he knew us because he worked for his dad, who was our plant provider, but then he went back to work with his dad. So it was on great terms. But three of them, one was an aquarium guy who reached out to us randomly. One was Tyler, who reached out. His background was in sales, but oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the most important part. He has a degree in marine biology from
wow.
Penn State. So he had a job with the EPA or the Pennsylvania Gaming Commission, and then he lost it during COVID, or he never got it because they made an offer and then they put a hiring freeze. So that's why he's like, I just want to do something with water, just something. So the same thing goes for leads. Like you said, you need to have a system and you need to get in touch with people, but we have it in writing how it works. How everything works is a system. And that's our business coach, makes us put everything. She's like, we need another, oh, fuck, excuse my language. And then as soon as the system is done and good, like, you have to change it again. She's like, well, these things are always going. You're like, oh, management could be a pain in my neck.
Yeah,
But we then utilize every name we get, whether they're a lead or not, turns into an email that we use. So that's kind of
fantastic.
where blue-green marketing comes into to effect.
Very nice, Laura. And I do want to dive even further into that. But before we get to that, I know you had mentioned the company has grown past the seven-figure mark, 1.6 million revenue. And you had also mentioned in regard to meeting frequently with some of the team members in regard to kind of seeing, okay, were we over hours on this specific job? How do we perform? And it's nice to make that some of those top line sales. But can you talk about maybe some other metrics that you kind of look at within the company, whether it's net profit goals or gross
Yeah.
margin, or even just
So
looking
yes,
at a specific
we have
job?
net and gross profit goals. And Angel, who's our bookkeeper through you, she tells those to me every month, what we did. And our numbers are high. We want a 60 to 70% gross and a 30% net. And those are high numbers, but we know how to get them. What really, really, really helped, my mother used to joke that if my husband were a prostitute, he'd give it away. He's
Uh,
just way too nice. But now everybody in the company is more scared of me than they are of saying no to a customer
sure,
because we hold them accountable. I was going to say we call them out, but that's not the right word. We hold everyone accountable, but we're always there for our staff. Shit happens. We know that my husband has left the hose on and killed $1,000 worth of fish. So when an employee does it, we can't get mad. You know what I mean? If they did it every week.
yeah,
So another thing we started tracking this year, which is really cool, is we started tracking callbacks because we were looking at a profit and loss, but we weren't looking at the amount of time. So who had the initial problem, which employee did it, the work, how much time it took for the callback, whether we were able to charge for that, and who did the callback. So those are some of the other ways that we track our money. And I worked with Angel to figure out what our hourly amount needed to be in order for us to make money. And it's funny because people always say, well, what should my hourly rate be? I'm like, only you know that. You know that. I mean, you're an accountant. Like it depends on a lot of things. And it really depends on how many team members you have, how big your
sure.
this year we also did a huge thing. We purchased a building. So that was pretty exciting. We've been looking for 4 years. We purchased basically a warehouse to put all our trucks and equipment and just have our own space. We've never had our own space. So that was $800,000. So that was pretty freaking terrifying.
Yeah. Wow, Laura. And listen, it's one thing having goals like you had mentioned with the 67% gross margin, 30% net profit, but not a lot of companies are actually able to hit numbers like that. Now, how do you feel that your company is able to really hit some of these high profitability numbers even past the seven-figure mark?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, I don't compromise and we're not for everyone. So in a way, I do understand it's easier than landscaping because there's less competition. but it's starting, there's more and more CACs. There's like a ton of pond competition here too, but not like, but also what makes, so that's easier, but what makes it harder for us is not everyone has a pond. So we can't target an area. Like I would do all kinds of send gym marketing and EDDM, everyday direct mail. I would do things like that, except we only want houses with ponds.
Sure.
So we charge a lot. I mean, but we provide the service, and I can't tell you how many people call us, go with someone else, and then come back because the people don't call them back. They don't want to do maintenance. They messed it up. They weren't professional. So Sandy and the answering service are really our secret sauce because people, and I'm the same way, like if something's $200 more expensive, but someone gets back to me right away and calls me, I'm going to hire you.
Yeah.
So I think people get so caught up in price and so caught up in the idea that they have to be the cheapest, and they don't. They just have to be communicative and the best.
Yeah.
So our website, our branding, our logos, we redo our vans every couple of years. Everything looks top notch. And
Absolutely.
so that's how we charge. We consider ourselves the best.
Very nice, Laura. And yeah, I think having that marketing system down and actually picking up the phone, doing some of those basics, but more importantly, some of that marketing aspects, right? And you having an expertise within that, that allows the company to, because the more leads you're taking in, the more, in essence, picky you can be and really work with those customers that you want to work with. Now,
And
to
then they
kind of
come
continue,
back like 2 or 3 years
yeah,
later, which is
yeah.
super cool. Sorry, I interrupted what you were going to say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Laura. I just wanted you to please kind of dive into really your approach when it comes to marketing and
So, and it's
especially for
funny
those
because
that are yeah,
like a lot of people, we're a little slower this year. It's been a rough year.
yeah,
I think it's the election year. It's just changes in the economy. People are worried. So the marketing has been more important than ever. And we do a bunch of things. And one thing we do is we've even reached back to everyone we gave a quote to in the past year. But we
yeah,
also do proactive in-person visits. My husband did a lot in the fall and got a lot of work that way. He'd even be somewhere and like literally take a video and be like, this is why I think you need this. This is why you need this. So we go to people too. But the three things that work really well for us now, the top three ways we get business, everyone's like, what? Is networking, email marketing, and SEO, search engine optimization. I'm sorry, search engine marketing, SEM.
okay. I guess starting with the networking piece, what's entailed within that?
It's hard. So I'll give you an example. Last year, this is insane. We reached out to 68 landscape companies that we found that we said, we can either do your ponds or we can, maintain ponds. If you don't maintain them, we do this, whatever you need. And then Sandy, God bless her, called every one of those landscapers to try to get an appointment. And
Wow.
and the one company she called, which was a decent sized company, they're like, oh, we didn't get that. That must have gone to the father and he retired. Send it to this person. They're the ones we met with. We met with a couple people, but they're the ones that ended up hiring us for this big job for Johnson and Johnson that we could have never gotten in on our own because we didn't have the insurance for it. So we came under them and they told J&J that they couldn't do it, but they, had someone working for them that could. So that turned into a big job. And then the networking's a long game because so let's say you do landscaping. You're going to reach out to companies that don't do hardscaping. You're going to reach out to companies that do mowing. You're going to try to partner with whoever you can. And I know it's harder in landscaping, but that's when you go out of your network and you reach out to realtors. You reach out. We have 2 display ponds in places. We what was I going to say? We sponsor a bunch of stuff. So we sponsor our son's basketball league. We sponsored, and so my husband actually got a $35,000 job once, actually 2 jobs. He got one from Cub Scouts, just from the other dad being in Cub Scouts. And then funny enough, he got another job because he was on a camping trip with the Boy Scouts and he built he built a fire pit like so quickly with stone and everything. And this one guy was so impressed, he hired Matt to do his flagstone. So you got to get out in the community. You have to be out there. And again, sitting in your house or you're complaining that you've done, I'm sure you hear this all the time from clients, right? I can't find good employees and I can't find work. They're about there. You just have to work really, really hard. So
Yeah.
like we met with a couple landscape companies this year and they might call, they might not, but we're hoping that when something comes up, and sometimes we have someone we networked with, my gosh, 6, 7 years ago. It was seriously that long ago. And then she had this horrible, she got this weird illness in another country and like almost died and came back to life. And I don't even, and her mother's very well known in the Philadelphia area as a restaurateur. And her ex owns one of the largest retail organizations in the country. So believe it or not, they reached out to us today. And I'm talking 6 years ago, we networked with them and they bought this new big property and they want stormwater management. And we do that.
Wow.
So that's how long it can take for networking. And people are like, you don't have time for it. Well, you don't have time not to. If you're not have a job, then get your ass out there and network.
Yeah.
So
And Laura, so you had mentioned long game, right? And in regard to just kind of the approach when it comes to networking, maybe you might not get business from that person, within the next week, but it's building those relationships.
could take a couple of years.
Yeah,
But every time you grow, you're building more people in your network.
yeah. And when it comes to email marketing, I guess kind of staying in front of those people that you may network
Yeah,
with
so
and stuff
that's my
like that.
specialty. And
Yeah.
that is where we still, and my clients too, we get a lot of work from email marketing and a lot of recognition. And one story I like to tell, this woman reached out and it turns out because we can look through the database when she first like the best. So we use Less Annoying CRM and people will reach out and we're like, you reached out 3 years ago. They're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, okay, we have a picture of your pond. We're like, can you send a recent picture of your pond? And they'll say send the same
Is this your
picture.
backyard?
Like we keep records. Like, okay, that's the same picture you sent us 3 years ago. But okay, yeah, it looks new. So one woman literally got our emails for 8 years before
Wow.
calling us to build a pond. So what email marketing does is, and mine is very, very important because I don't do sales. They're not salesy like sale, $500 off, winter special. People don't read that. We do tips. They're all interesting tidbits. So like what to do, how to shade your plants, how to keep your fish cool in the summer. So lots of pond plants are important, just so you know. When to feed your fish. So they're all just tidbits of information. If you have a blog, we put the blog in there. And then, so that's just our way of literally staying on top of our clients and potential clients. And we do let people know when, okay, contracts are coming out soon, check your email. So that could be at the bottom, but we always still have a tip. And then things like check, or like we'll send a separate email to the people that have gotten the contracts but haven't responded yet. And so we'll go through and send them an email saying there's only 2 weeks left for your discount. There's only 1 week left. And then Sandy starts calling. So we have a system for that too, where we start with a mass email, then we do individual emails, and then we call. And then we mailed the contract. And literally, I can't tell you, 5 to 10 people were like, I never heard from you this year. Only
Yeah,
thing left would be carrier pigeon or us to show up at your door. Like we reach out, but email marketing. And the other thing I want to mention about it is it's really good. And this helps our profit margins as well. It's older people have more money. And by older, I mean people 35 and up. Those are the people much more likely to check your email. Because one thing I've had with some millennials and people are like, oh, who reads email anymore? A lot of people. I read yours. That's how I found out you had this podcast. So, I say to those people, look at your clients, not you. So
yeah,
you should create a client avatar, know who your client is, and then work towards that. I also do not use AI, which I use an incredible, let me change that. I use it in very small doses of moderation. But if
Yeah.
you write a tip for AI with AI, especially if you don't know how to use it correctly and you are it gives you, and we got a resume from this guy. I should have saved it. We were cracking up. Like he's a landscape laborer, and that's all we needed. He's like, I judiciously and strategically handle the refuge pit. We're like, oh my God, you pick up trash. Like, just say it. So that's the problem. And then also people say they're gonna do it and they don't. So what I offer and what Blue Green Marketing offers, and that's so important, and what AquaReale specializes in is consistency. And if you're there and then you disappear, and I've seen that with like things myself, I think seen people disappear, like, and then I'll just start getting emails from them. And I'm like, well, that was weird. But so I tell clients, my Blue Green Marketing clients, keep everyone. Like, you're allowed in the US to add anyone to your database when they reach out to you. In Europe, you have to have double click approval, which
Yes.
is just interesting and it's different. But here, and I say, if people don't want to be on there, they'll tell you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's just huge, huge, huge for staying in touch with people.
Very nice, Laura. And no, I think it's an underestimated part of marketing. Um, because I think that there's a lot of other flashy things that people
Yeah,
try.
and everyone's like SEO, SEM, and they're great, and we use SEM too. But what SEM is good for, and that's search engine marketing, Google Ads, people call it, and what that's great for is getting clients. But it doesn't remind your current clients or your past clients or your past leads who you are.
Yeah,
So we also use social media. And so we do a picture of the week, for waterfall people, we do Waterfall Wednesday. We do before and afters, and I do this for clients as well. I also write blogs, and then we post the blogs. And now Blue Green Marketing started offering a service where we put our tips and everything on Google My Business, which is really important, on LinkedIn. So those are two new platforms for us, on Instagram and Facebook.
very nice.
So a couple of my clients have upgraded to that. And so if you don't want to do email marketing, which I still think is really, really important, there's still things Blue Green Marketing can do for you. But
Very nice.
Google My Business and LinkedIn, the most important things with those two are consistency. And Google My Business, I can't even explain it because it changes so much. And Scott Mulchin probably explained it to you much better. But that's how Google does, like, that's how you show up higher now, is with engagement within your site or within your Google My Business ranking or listing. So we post on there 3 times a week. And we post our blogs, we post our tips, we post pictures. So that's the sort of service I'm offering for people now, because what I'm finding is anyone can do it. But okay, let me ask you a question. Do you do that?
No.
You
So
could.
we do post on some of the social medias, not necessarily on the Google My Business profile.
And
Yeah.
LinkedIn, which is, we're just starting to kind of use LinkedIn for networking, and it's pretty cool. And we're linking in to some pretty, higher up people and then trying to meet them that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but see, again, having scheduled things and knowing what day. So with AquaReale, we have certain things, and we called them names and that didn't work. But on Mondays, we do before and afters. On Tuesday, we do like Tip Tuesday. Wednesday's Waterfall Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, and then Fish Friday. So
Very cool.
we try to stay consistent and update our social media as well. And then, like I said, our third way of getting business is search engine marketing, and that's how new people find us. But
Wow.
I can't stress enough. I know I keep stressing it. You can't just rely on new people. You're losing like 80% of your work, or most people's work, comes from past clients. And
Wow.
it's much easier and cheaper to keep a client or get a client back than it is to find a new client.
Absolutely. Which is why, again, I think things like email marketing, um, they're it's one of those things that is not going to have an enormous cost to it, right? It's just all built into just being able to build up that list over time, and
Yeah.
and Laura, what does it take? 7, 8 times or touches until a customer buys, right? So it's,
But when you're talking about a $30,000 item, it could take a few years.
yeah,
But what I tell people, the worst, I think it's 5 words in business you can hear, are you still in business? There you go. That is 5. And like, who wants to hear that? And we never, ever, ever hear that, ever. Because people know we're in business because we're constantly reaching out and touching them. And we
yeah,
feel like that value also makes it, that's how we keep the high profit margins, is we look so professional and we're giving free advice every single week and month.
yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the things you spoke about today, Laura, I feel that there's definitely technology and software that really helps to enable some of it. In regard to your tech stack and softwares that you're utilizing, I know you had mentioned less annoying CRM. Uh,
Yeah,
you mind diving into, maybe do you use another project management software in the
we use a
field
bunch
or
of
accounting
stuff.
software?
We use Jobber.
Okay.
So the way we do it, and again, we had to create a system because it was getting unclear and confusing, and you can't schedule in less annoying. You can do more and more. So we use less annoying CRM to track leads, and it's our database, like I said. And the reason we don't want to get out of it is literally, Sandy, we worked on someone 12 years ago. I'm not kidding. And she just reached out and I saw the name. I'm like, oh my God, her. And sometimes we're like, oh. And she goes, well, you built my pond. You don't need a picture of it. We're like, that was in 2012. Like, we need to see what it looks like now, friend. And I probably should not have mentioned her name, but she's not. Like, did I say her whole name? I hope not. Anyway, so that's how long, but she gets, and you know how I know she gets our emails? Because she responded to one and said, I'd like to get a price for cleaning my pond. We're like, holy crap. So people come back. Like, it is bizarre how much. So that's what Less Annoying CRM is for, is it's our database of their original pictures. Now, instead of a picture of the client, we put a picture of the pond. So once something becomes an estimate, we push a button through Zapier, and Clay, our automations guy, knows how to do this, not me. And boom, it ends up in Jobber.
Sure.
So once it ends up in Jobber, it becomes what we call a job. And that's kind of when my husband takes it more. And that's when it gets scheduled. And then we schedule things against jobs that way. We also use Nice Job. Do you know what that is?
Nice job helps with the reviews, right?
Yeah, helps with
Okay.
reviews. And it was interesting because I was just, I don't know, I was looking at something one day because I never stop working. And one of our biggest competitors here has like 28 reviews, and we have over 150.
Wow.
And a lot of that, because we do great work, but also from Nice Job. And what Nice Job does is when you finish a job in Jobber, again, I don't know how, you push a button and it syncs. Magic. And they get a series, they get an email, a text, and email, I think, looking for, asking for reviews. And our guys are also trained, and they know if their names are mentioned, they get $25. So one
Awesome.
guy was mentioned twice yesterday, so he gets $50 at tomorrow's team meeting.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
We
nice.
also do things like positive reinforcement where you get tickets kind of for good behavior. Like if you filled that jobber correctly all week. For a while, now we have a new team. The team always shows up on time, but for a while, it's if you clocked in on time, if you get a review, if you do something good or extra for the client, like move something, bring their trash cans up, anything. We're like, just leave the yard better than it came in. And so we put tickets in a container, and once a month we pick a name and they win $200 cash.
That's awesome.
So just, ways to boost. And we've also learned that if you want an adult working for you, you need to treat and pay them like adults because you get what you pay for. And we offer health insurance benefits to all of our employees. We offer IRAs, almost all of our guys, and we pay a $200 a month towards their health benefits, and usually they're under 350. So they're only paying $150, and that's for dental, medical, and vision.
Wow.
So that's how you keep people.
Wow. No, awesome stuff, Laura. And I feel like we can go on for
I
another hour
know,
or two,
sorry.
but I guess anything else you'd like to leave the community with in regard to
Yeah,
any
two
advice?
things. The first one is we're not going to hit 1.6 million this year, and that's okay. Like, you can't let yourself get so caught up in the numbers and get so caught up in the stress it's a tough year. We'll still be well over 1 million. And the way I look at it is we also highly increased our salaries. And that was, we use your accountant now, and that was her suggestion. So we also have an executive bonus plan that pays our life insurance out of there. We pay for, the company pays for our long-term care, and it pays for disability. So we have a lot of things built in there that the company pays for. And what's left over, if we don't have as much profit this year, that's okay.
Yeah.
So you just have to be prepared to go with the ebbs and flows of business. And that's what I would really, 3 things. That's number one. Number two is have a system and get back to people. I can't, because you are probably missing employees that want to work for you. That, if this had been my husband, he would have missed because he just doesn't have time. He's out in the field.
Yeah.
So if you don't have time to do it, find someone who can. And, virtual's great if that's what works for you. If that's what works for you. For us, we needed people to be able to see Sandy once a week. And me, because I never got to know the employees. I'm behind the scenes. No one sees me. So, and then the third thing that's really important is BlueGreen marketing and email marketing and just staying in touch with your clients. And I cannot stress how much, I have one kind of newer client I got in January, and he was like this, he just hired me to do his blogs and his social media as well. And he said, he's like, we hear from people all the time. Like this is, and he's, an exception that hears people all the time, but I have other people that say they get, at least one response a week. And I know it works because I see that. 12 years, and this woman, we're like, great, okay. So, but we'll clean her pond. So, that's those are my 3 suggestions. But if anyone wants to reach out to me about BlueGreen marketing, were you going to ask that next? I'm sure.
100%. Beat me
That's what
to
happens
it.
when you interview a podcaster.
Yeah. And because you mentioned that, before you get to that, also just I want to recommend Landscape Marketing Secrets podcast as well.
Thank
So
you. Yes. So that is my
definitely,
podcast.
yeah.
I go through periods where I went through another one where okay, so this just shows I'm human like everyone else. I got really mad. I had this former client who's like in his mid 70s, and he's so annoying. And he gives me like suggestions I didn't ask for. And then it turned into this big thing when I'm Jewish, and it turned down to this thing with I wrote something very innocent about my Jewish daughter being worried on campus. And he wrote this whole political reply. I'm like, dude, no, like, this is not my point. I don't discuss politics or religion. Mine is kids and
Yeah.
kittens. And that's Facebook. Keep it to kids, kittens, and your work. Can't say that enough. It is out there. It's called social for a reason. If you have, a view you want to discuss it in person. So, and then he sent me this whole text about everything I was doing wrong with my podcast. And some of it I agreed with, but some of it, and you're going to laugh, but it hurt my feelings so bad that I stopped doing the podcast for a while.
No.
So
Come
I
on.
know I'm human just like everyone else. But then 2 people reached out to me in the past week, which is bizarre, that found me through the podcast. And I'm like, all right, put your big girl pants on, Laura, get back to it. And then I blocked the guy anyway. I'm like, you know what? I blocked him from my phone because he's just a negative influence. And do you ever get that though? Someone, and you just let yourself get sucked in by one negative review or comment?
So I think that's I think the difference between maybe being an employee and being the owner of a company. I
Yeah.
think being the owner of a company, those are things that you're exposed to. And it's unfortunate because when we have people reach out, you guys do a great job. That makes our day. But then sometimes, just within any business, there's something maybe we could do better or something like that.
But you're
So it's
also probably
always,
getting blamed for things that aren't in your control. Like if someone hasn't paid taxes in 2 years and owes $100,000, and now they're screwed and probably mad at you. And you're like, so you have to take it all with a grain of salt. And it's funny because
yeah,
my husband is way more sensitive about the pond stuff, where
yeah.
that I'm all business and I don't care. But when you tell me my podcast sucks and give me the reasons why, like, it really hurt. But anyway, starting it again. Please listen. I'll have you on soon now. I'd love to. But I got it. So yes. So my podcast is called Landscape Marketing Secrets. I've been doing it for 7 years, and I have about 280 episodes.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
we'll hit
And
300
then
this year.
I also cut you off before in regard to what is the best way people can reach out in regard to just questions or even in regard to Blue Green marketing services.
Yep. So the best way is to either text or email me. And I love getting texts. That's my number is 215-805-8257. Or you can, I say that real slow. See that? That's my PR background, knowing to give you time to write it down. Or you can reach out. It's Laura, Laura, at bluegreen-marketing.com.
Very nice.
So let me help grow your business. And I think what's really cool and what makes me different as a marketer is I also own a business and a very successful one. So I had one client that left me to work with someone local, and he came back. He goes, he kept sending pool tips. Or, you know, they weren't understanding your climate or your area. So I research, I understand, and I'm in the business, and so is my husband. So if I have a question, I'm like, is this what you would do in September for landscaping? He's like, yeah, but I do it like this. I'm like, okay. So whoever you're hiring, make sure they understand your industry. And that's why I love you guys, because you stick in the green industry as well. And one of the things I love that Angel, who's our bookkeeper, does is, besides the fact that she is so freaking patient, so patient, but she does KPIs and she shows how we're doing compared to other landscapers.
Yeah.
And I will say, compared to landscapers, pond builders make a lot more money. Have you noticed? Or, you know, we just charge a lot more because we can, but yeah, you gotta stay in front of people. And, you know, as you know, you have to be professional.
Yeah.
Even if you're a one-person operation, don't show it. Be professional.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Well, I've already kept you for quite a while here, and you know, and I'm looking forward to, you know, probably having you on some more episodes in the future. But
Yeah, as you can see, I could talk about this for days, and we could do a whole one just on networking. I do public talk, so I talked to Water Garden Expo. I'm talking at the Atlantic OASI conference in the fall.
okay.
I talked to a business boot camp where I brought Carla on board.
Yeah.
So my topics are different. Some of the more recent ones, which probably interest, are networking, how to network, and then one on how we increased our business 42% maintenance in 1 year.
Very nice.
And that was just through systems and figuring out, you know, you have to know your hours.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not making money.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so those are all, so I'm giving you topics to talk to me again. That's how organized I am. Or anal.
Good stuff, Laura. Well, thank you very much for joining us here, and hope you have a nice rest of your day. All right.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.